Hextall clearly wants Tristan Jarry to be better, to bounce back. What you want doesn't always align with what you need. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. Comes your way bright and early every weekday morning if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer up daily shots of Steelers and Pirates right where you found this. Hextall's got quite a lot riding on his stance regarding the goaltending. He's got to be aware of that. And if he isn't aware of that, then he needs only to look back, to his own time in Philadelphia, where everything about his position related to the Flyers' long history of struggling in goal. So long that it goes all the way back to everyone who followed Hextall himself in the late 80s, for crying out loud. It's always been about patience. It's always been about hanging tough, digging in there, believing in the guy, sticking behind our goaltender. And here, I'll let Hextall put it in his own words. This was in a conversation over the weekend with the local media.
When you're a goaltender, and I've lived it, there's disappointments that you have to get over and you have to bounce back from. And I feel strongly that Tristan's gonna bounce back and be a very good goaltender for us throughout the entire year.
You heard him say it. He relates to the situation because he was an NHL goaltender, and an outstanding one at that, a star, a Conn Smythe Trophy winner for the Flyers in a Stanley Cup final they lost to Edmonton. That's the level at which he played at his peak. And he did so with a visible, tangible mental toughness about him. Heck, a physical toughness about him as well. One of the most aggressive, nastiest goaltenders in NHL history. So maybe he's of the mind here that this is just mental. When you watch Jarry, you don't see physical shortcomings. He's got all the athleticism. I used to say, when he was the number 3 behind, Fleury and Murray and everybody else, that he was the athletic rival of Fleury and more athletic than Murray, and that was not a popular opinion when I'd share it. But I saw Jarry do things, particularly with his legs and lower body, that I don't see a lot of other NHL goaltenders being able to match from the purely physical standpoint. I'm not talking about whether he gets beat to his glove or to his blocker side or whatever else. Those are mostly positional. I'm talking about physical. I'm talking about the physical ability to be able to move quickly enough and with enough strength and balance to make the save. Jarry's got that. Jarry's always had that. What he's lacked, and this is the reason that he fell to the second round the year the Penguins drafted him, is that concentration, that focus, that sense of urgency. If you've been listening to this show for a while, I've used that term often as it relates to Jarry. He's so even-keeled. I'm not talking about on the ice. I'm talking about off the ice. He's so even-keeled, you can't get a rise out of him in one direction or the other. And while that obviously can be an asset to someone at a position like goal where you need to be able to forget your last mistake in about, 8 or 9 seconds until they line up for the next draw. It also, I think, can be a minus because you lack that sense of urgency. It's a playoff game. It's a really, really, really big deal. It shouldn't ever cross your mind that you could go behind the net, collect the puck, try to maybe shoot it up the rink to go for an empty net goal when you're down a couple. Remember that? It shouldn't ever cross your mind in a zillion years to pass the puck up the middle the way he did to the Islanders in that overtime. And when you watch his body language, it's not that he doesn't care. It's not that's not his DNA at all. It's just that there isn't that sense of, fire and hunger. And that's why Mike Sullivan, when he switches over to Casey DeSmith, as we saw him do more than once in the last regular season, he would bring up DeSmith fighting for the puck, DeSmith fighting to see through screens, fighting to make the save, because that can be a negative. What makes me skeptical that Jarry can be improved in this area is it's too inherent. It's too intrinsic. I don't want to sit here and play sports psychologist. And I respect absolutely that Ron Hextall would have had significant dialogue, not only with the other coaches and evaluators and administrators, but with Jarry himself. As much as you can have a dialogue with him to try to dig deep somewhere, because there just really isn't that much. I'm not being mean here. I'm just trying to be honest with you, okay? So what could have come of all that dialogue to say, you know what, we just kind of need to make him, a little bit more like Hextall. And if you're someone who played the way Hextall did, you probably can't even begin to grasp how someone would lack urgency in a playoff setting or in life. And that's where I fear that this decision is being rooted. And I can't say this often enough. Look, I don't wish ill upon the kid. I hope he sticks it in my face. I hope he sticks it in all of our faces. And for that matter, I hope Hextall does too. I hope they're right and I'm wrong. I hope we're all wrong, because you're with me on this. But I really don't think that I will be. I really don't. When we come back, just one question. Welcome back. It's time for Just One Question. That's brought to you always on this program by the good people at the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank, where they are committed to providing food for all of our neighbors in need across western Pennsylvania. $1 is all it takes to produce 5 full meals for those in need. Visit pittsburghfoodbank.org and make sure you spell that out, pittsburghfoodbank.org. Today's question comes from Blaze Melandra, who asks, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the change at goaltending coach. What am I missing? 2 young goalies seemingly regressed under Mike Buckley. If the Penguins are really rolling with Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith, doesn't a fresh set of eyes make sense to turn Jarry around? Blaze, yes. I mean, I'm agreeing with you here. Maybe you got the sense from my episode last week on the goaltending coach change that I was being critical of the actual change. I wasn't. I openly called for Buckley's firing at the end of the season, both here on Daily Shot of Penguins and in a written column from Long Island, right there in black and white. So I was anything but opposed to a change at that position. What I was pointing out in that show that ran last Friday was that the move itself, to me, was aimed principally at being able to alter the narrative, or at least adjust the narrative. Meaning this: Hextall and Brian Burke and Mike Sullivan and everybody else of any authority at PPG Paints Arena understands that the hardest sell here in keeping Jarry and DeSmith as your 1 and 2 isn't to us, isn't to me and you, Blaze. It's to the skaters. It's to the guys in the room, because those guys put everything onto the ice in that Islanders series. Outplayed New York for 5 of the 6 games. Should have won the series, I believe. Easily is not the right word, because it would have taken the effort that they put forth. But the effort they put forth was good enough to have gotten through it without getting to 6 or 7 games. But they needed their goaltender to not collapse in front of them. They also needed DeSmith to not get hurt right before the playoffs, but that's in parentheses. So what they needed, Hextall and Burke and everybody else, was a way to be able to sell the players on the idea that if you do see Jarry looking better, looking more consistent, maybe a little bit more demonstrative, when you get into the next regular season, believe what you see. Don't think that it's a mirage waiting to blow up the moment they drop the puck for Game 1 of the next playoffs. That's the sell job that needs to happen here. I understand that the words that I'm using here probably sound cynical. They really aren't. Because what you'll hear a million times over, if Jarry looks a little different, plays the game, you know what? As long as I'm making parallels here with other goaltenders, the way Andy Chiodo did, the new goaltending coach. I remember when Andy came up, and he was sharing the net with Sebastian Caron, and he was a goaltender who was of very modest size and somewhat modest skill, but he was super into it. And you could feel it when he was playing, that he was putting 100 zillion% into everything. And his teammates felt it, and they appreciated it, and they respected it. Maybe there's something Andy can do there. But one last time, I will believe that when I see it. I appreciate the question, Blaze. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll do another one tomorrow.